I'm going to speak about pathways, so the description of the inside of subway station and how it started at around a pizza, and it ended with an creation of the new international organization based in Montreal, MobilityData IO. So first the pizza, then the pathways, and at the end, the international organization. Who in the room I've heard about transportation camp? Yeah, so for the one who do not know what is transportation camp, it's a one-day unconference, which is happening in many cities in North America. Every year in October, there is one in New York. So if you live here, just go. The next one is October the 12th. I do not own anything, and I'm not going to have any money if you're going, but you can go. It's really interesting. It's a place where the kind of crowd that we are here today is going to discuss any kind of issue related to transportation at a broader sense. So in 2017, the conversation started with somebody working in the industry telling us that as he's on a wheelchair, and that for him, the most annoying in the subway is not only that there is just a few elevators, but that even if he knows that he should be able to do the trip because there should be elevators, some of them may be down, and he has no way to really know in advance. Okay, I'm hitting it. So there is a need for real-time status for elevator. Turns out some agencies are already providing that information, but they are just telling you that the elevator 134 in that subway station is down. So then what is the conclusion out of that? Is the station still accessible because there is another elevator? Is only one of the platforms still accessible, or is none of the platform accessible? And what we would need is all the relationship between the entrances, the platform, the elevator, the escalator, and everything else. So after that transportation camp, I went back home, Montreal. You can hear that in my accent. Sorry for that. I dig out an old proposal that has been made in 2010 to extend the data format, which is commonly used for public transit data. Do you know which format is? Thank you. Who have not heard of GTFS in the room? Okay, GTFS has been created by a partnership between Google and TriMet. TriMet is the public transit agency in Portland, Oregon, in 2006. And basically, if an agency is producing a GTFS, they are on Google Maps. And if an agency is not producing a GTFS, they are not. So as you can guess, most of them, at least in the US, are producing a GTFS. That proposal was offering to extend GTFS to describe it. So I updated it, I extended it to handle what we are needing those days. Then I involved the GTFS community around that conversation. Google joined the conversation, which was very nice to see, with their internal unofficial spec for that kind of thing, which was simpler than the one that we put on the table. We merged the two proposals into one that we called then GTFS-Pathways. We are at the end of 2017. At that point, it's only a proposal which is on the table. What are we speaking about? So here we have a station in New York, which is... Come on, Kurt, you cannot give that answer. You should wait for somebody else to give it. So you will just shush on the other one. So yes, it's that one. So that's a representation of the station using pathways. In blue, you can see the two platforms. In red, you can see the 5 entrances that you can see on the map. By the way, that drawing is by Candy Chan from her project New York, Project Subway New York. Project Subway, which is absolutely amazing. So check the website. And so what you used to have in the GTFS back then were only the entrances and the platform. And what we are adding are the nodes to say that you have a staircase, then you have to cross a fare gate, then you have to go through elevators, and then you can access the platform. That's a simple one in a way. Here we have another station, which is, Kurt, you are not allowed to say anything? 23rd Street, yes. So here you see all the entrances, but what you see immediately with the diagram is that there is no link between the two sides of the station. If you enter an entrance which is flagged as northbound, as uptown, you have no way to cross. It's unlinked. And that's the kind of the information that we did not have in GTFS before extending it with pathways. Here there is another one which is Yes, I don't know who said it, but it was coming from here. Yes, indeed, that's the cluster between Bower Hall and Court Street. Here, it's way more complex, and there are elevators, and you can access to 3 of those 6 platforms using an elevator. But from that drawing, it's really not obvious to see which one it is. Here, okay, it's a bit more complicated. In green, you have the staircase, and in purple, you have the elevators. So from outside, you only have that one. You can access the platform here. So Bower Hall, it's the 2 and the 2 and 3. But here you see that you have a pathways, which is linking you to that one. So the northbound 4 and 5 can also be accessed with wheelchair. GTFS-Pathways. So to sum up, we are extending an existing and widely used data format. We had a working group including New York MTA, San Francisco MTA, Boston MBTA, software vendor like Cambridge Systematic, Kizio Digital, some consuming apps like Google and some others, and some third parties specialized in accessibility. It's in production. So in production, Google is actually consuming the data in that data format in Google Maps. We have those 3 companies working on producing the data. Boston MBTA has already put it in their GTFS. San Francisco and New York MTA are working on it. I will speak about MTA just a bit after. We also have London, UK, and Paris working on it, and Montreal, Canada, working on it. And we created a replicable process to handle that kind of need, that kind of industrial need. So MTA is currently engaged in data collection for GTFS-Pathways. They have quite a few stations already mapped, and they are looking to put that in their production pipe. They are planning to release data for 1 pilot station in the coming month, singular. And they will very likely release a broader data set in the coming months. So hopefully I too when I'm in New York, but mostly you will have that information in the data set. And so all the transportation app that you are using, the routing information that you will get will be improved by telling you which entrance you should get, and also by providing you wayfinding outside and inside, telling you follow that kind of sign. It's a bit like a GPS, but for pedestrian in a subway station. And that is coming directly from MTA. Do you recognize? So that has been automatically generated. Which station it is? It's way harder, but it's the same one. It's Bower Hall and Court Street, which is here displayed with the data that MTA collected. So just to show you, they are really working on it. So yeah, it's the same one that one. So the international organization. So the whole pathway conversation, the community around that started with GTFS best practices, which was a project made between 2015 and 2015 to align on shared practices on the production of the data. We had those people around the table. I'm going to go a little bit faster on that section because it might be a tiny bit less interesting for you. But basically, who are we nowadays after Pathways and all of that? We started at the project by the Rocky Mountain Institute, and because the kind of work that we did with Pathways was seen as really interesting by the different stakeholders in the industry, public transit agency, software vendor, and consuming apps like Google, Transit Apps, Citymapper, and the other one, we secured funding. Now we are a Canadian nonprofit. We are formalizing the governance structure, and we are working on other proposals. We are working on describing demand-responsive transit. As you know, very often public transit agency in the fringe of the city, the very low, densely populated suburb are providing flexible services which cannot be represented. Because it cannot be represented, people do not even know that they exist, so they have even less ridership. So with the proposal that we have on the table, you will see that on your whichever apps you're using results. We're working on vehicle information and boarding area so that if an AC is down in a vehicle, the agency will have a normalized way to provide you that information, or if it's crowded. If the bus is making a detour, or if there is bus replacement shuttle, last minute ones, they will be able to provide you that information. Localization of modes and networks. For example, in New York, I think that if we group subway, MTA, and path under subway, you would get really confused. translation and localization, and everything is happening online on Google Docs. So what I want to show you, what I want to show you with that is that the conversation which are happening right now around in the mobility industry toward enhancing the data format that we have is a conversation which is happening online on open conversation on Google Doc and on GitHub that if you're interested to join, you could join. And on the side, we're also doing the same kind of thing with the GBFS. Who knows what is a GBFS? Yay. Yeah, it's transit techies, but so mostly public transit techies. GBFS is the equivalent for bike sharing, car sharing, and free floating systems. We also, through a partnership, have a website where you can find all those data sets if you want to play with them. And we have 2 other projects for the next year. Yeah, I'm going to not dive into that. And we are going to work very likely on a pathway visualizator. Kurt, that one is for you, which hopefully is going to help you. That's all.